Welcome everybody that's watching. I'm Nici Brückner from the Filmmakers Festival Berlin. I'm a producer, a filmmaker. I would like to welcome Bonnie Williams. Bonnie is a pitch and public speaking coach and a consultant for industry professionals. She specializes in supporting international speakers and finding their own voice and speaking with impact. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, everybody. I'm an American-born former actress based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And I've been working, as Nici said, as a pitch and public speaking coach, primarily for the film industry for the last, I don't know how many years. Before that, I was on the other side of the camera and didn't realize that there was a whole process to get a film made, because I would come just during the production. So that was a big eye-opener for me many years ago, and I realized also how difficult and long and special the whole process is. And yeah, my career developed in a foreign country, I started doing more applied theatrical methodologies to help people in businesses and in different corporations to enhance communication. And then I got kind of tired of the business world and went back to my old first love, which is the film industry. And I thought, I can help people here maybe. So that's what I've been doing.
Wonderful. And that takes us actually to our topic today. So I really would want to talk to you about the topic of networking, the topic of pitching your project, all these things. Our film festival basically supports up and coming filmmakers, female filmmakers from around the world. And I kind of feel like that's something that everyone can improve in. And so therefore I just want to have a conversation with you about, maybe you have some tricks, maybe you have some ideas of, what makes a good pitch, what should we look out for when we go networking. So my first question to you would be, in our industry, film industry, you always hear about networking. And maybe you can explain a little bit to us why it's so important to actually network.
Well, I think that people who have been in the industry longer and people who are entering into the industry know it's built on relationships, basically. When you, if you want to make a film, there's a lot of films that you develop relationships with the people developing the film, with your crew, with your distributors, with your sales agents, with everything. And if you're doing international co-productions, it's also built on relationships. I always kind of talk about productions as being marriages, and that starts with meeting the right people and developing a good, solid working relationship together. And festivals are a great opportunity to meet people because they're everywhere. They're just walking around. So
when you talk about relationships, are you talking about a work relationship? Are you talking about a personal relationship?
Well, both. It's a work relationship, but I mean, it's a long relationship. People, I mean, because making a film doesn't happen overnight, and you're either, if it's in the creative process, you're sharing a vision, and you have to find each other and be able to add value to that collaboration, and if you're trying to get the film funded or distributed, you're also developing. It's a working relationship, but it's a relationship. People want to work with the people that they want to work with, the people they trust, the people they like, the people that share their values, or that they can learn from, or at least that they can tolerate. I
think the word trust is important, because you can't trust somebody you don't know. So therefore you have to, build this relationship, be able to know them, and then you feel like you can trust them. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and that doesn't happen at a festival, but the beginning does. I mean, you get a sense of people. You get a sense of people when you speak to them, and that's why. And when you network well, you get a sense pretty quickly if you want to continue exploring if there's any value in developing a relationship together. Basically.
Do you think there's a different way of networking for people that are just starting out and for people that are already professional? Or was the basic of it the same? Like, are we the ideas about networking and how we do it, how we present ourselves, is it the same?
I think there's a few common threads, but I think there's a difference for people just starting out, because a lot of it is who do you talk to and how do you break the ice, and what do you say, and how do you present yourself, how do you position yourself, or how do you, my big thing about, like, if we're going to focus on networking at a festival, my big thing is you have to make contact. This is a human industry, and a lot of people get intimidated by somebody who they admire or they think is in a position to help them or to further their career. And it's interesting because most of the people that I speak to on all ends of this, they're just people. And they just if they feel the connection, and then that's already the first step. So, I mean, people don't want to be used. Of course, it's a professional situation, but still there are people there. So I think that it depends on, I guess for people starting out, I mean, there's different ways to network. There are seeing somebody in the same online, going into a film or at the bar or something where you don't know somebody. There's a kind of a technique to, like, I call it cocktail pitching, even though it's just maybe coffee pitching. I never call it elevator pitching anymore because that's not where it really happens. But that's also different than, for example, if you have the opportunity to really have a one-to-one meeting with somebody, and you really have the chance to sit down. But the same common thing applies, is it's that human connection, and where do you meet, on what level?
So let's talk about the cocktail pitching. I quite like the label. This is just for our younger filmmakers. We also have a networking session running at the festival, so this might be some great information. If you walk into a room and you're ready to pitch and you don't know anyone, what is the best way to go and who you want to talk to, and what's the icebreaker? Like, do I just go straight into my pitch about my
no? That's the no. I mean, first of all, it's great if you're ready to pitch. I don't know really what that means. Well, we are always pitching all the time, so we should always be ready to pitch. But an icebreaker, a cocktail thing, a cocktail opportunity is not about pitching. Maybe I'm going to break a myth here. It's really about getting the permission to pitch, almost. So it's about, like, I mean, two people meeting. If I were to see you at a cocktail party and I think I would like to meet you, if I know who you are, I might just go over, and I know this is scary for people, but I might say, hey, hi, oh, you're Nici, you're the festival director. Oh, I saw the video of you. That was, and what I'm actually doing is focusing on you, not on me.
Mm-hmm. And
if I don't know you, I might just say, oh, and from woman to woman, I love your earrings. That you look, that's really, those are nice. They remind me of my grandmother or my niece or something. And then you have a conversation, or you're both online and you're waiting for the bar to get attention. And it's like, oh, Are you as am I as invisible here? Or I mean, anything that you would do for a normal person is a way to make a contact. I mean, and I know it sounds maybe silly or basic, but it's about focusing on the other person, because everybody likes to talk about themselves, basically. I mean, that's what we know best.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that's just,
sorry.
no, I was going to say that's kind of just like a little clue or a tip or something. And what I wanted to also say is some people are not outgoing. I mean, so they won't want to go up to somebody and say something. That's, I think that then it's a matter of weighing out if it's important for you to meet the person that you see and that is standing there and nobody's talking to them, and you feel like it's worth it, then I don't suggest that you put on any kind of personality airs or faking it or something, but that you are yourself and understand. I'd like to make contact or something, because yeah, because that's what this is about. It's about making the contact. And then I have another tip, if I'll just throw it out here at the moment.
Go.
Because if you're like talking to somebody and then you can ask them, so what are you doing here? Or do you have a film here? Or what have you just seen? Anything, any question with you in it is really good. But hopefully the person will say, yeah, what have you been doing? Or what are you doing here? And that's where you have a little bit of an opening to say, to present yourself or to share something. And there's a difference with pitching and with sharing, or I think pitching is sharing. And I think you should always have in your mind, okay, who are you? What is the project, or what is your idea or vision, or and if you really want to pitch a specific idea, it's like, why are you making it? I'm much more, because of your first, that's what I kind of called a cold open. A cold open is knowing who you are, what your project is, and why you're making it.
I think that's super important. Is the why you're making it. What's your motivation? What's the soul behind it? Like, I think that's super important. But just going back to the cocktail pitching, I think in Cannes just this year, I had my best connections with people at the bar waiting, because we just stood and waited for our drinks, or at the telephone mobile charging station. So because we stood there and we had to wait, and it was like the end of the network, and because we're both there with our phones just laughing, so that's kind of because it was on this personal level. This is where I made my the best connections. And so yeah, I agree.
And what I also think about this, and it goes hand in hand with cocktail pitching, you never know who you're standing next to, right? And you don't know what you could mean to them, or what they could mean to you, or maybe you have nothing in common, but maybe something you said makes them interested in you, or think you're a nice person, then they see you later, or maybe they know somebody who would be interested in your project, or it's again, this is that networking, it's sparking. So that's, and if you have the opportunity in a networking, in a cocktail moment to pitch, then make sure you're really quick, because people they don't want to know your whole story. They don't want to know the plot of your film. They don't want to know. They just want to know, what is it? Oh, and again, what you said again, and why are you making it? Because, and then if you entice them enough, or they're interested, or they're triggered, or they're if their eyebrows go up and they're like, oh, tell me more, then you have the opportunity to tell them how it happens or what happens. But I think it's really important not to impose on people.
Yeah. So that's great information, I think. So let's go to the more established filmmakers.
The same applies. No.
Yeah, but we have a pitching, I guess there's networking, and then
Yeah.
we have the pitching, like where we sit in front of an audience and we have to pitch our project.
Yeah.
And there, I think I find a lot of times that people also just go straight into the project and just go rattle, 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 just talk about the project. And sometimes I find they have 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes, they don't actually manage to hold the interest of the audience. And it's a bit like, it's a bit like Tinder. You just go, you hear it all, and then you go swipe next, swipe next. So it's, how can you make them stop? And again, I guess that's where maybe the motivation behind the project is.
I love that you said that. It's like Tinder, because in my pitch workshops, I always say that it is. It's like, yeah, because it's like your profile is what people can, when you're pitching, and when you're pitching like officially something, you probably either have on the catalog, you have a page with your, or you have some kind of information that people can read about your project. That's what I call your Tinder profile. So, and then when you get to do the pitch, that's kind of like the extended profile, and the one-to-one meeting is the first date. So, so the extended, the pitch is, it's exactly what we talk about. People want to, so what, again, this concept of who are, of the other person you're talking to. I mean, you know what your project is, but it's not about you or your project. It's about your audience, and you're pitching to engage people. I always say a pitch is more than a presentation of your project. It's an invitation to have a conversation about it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And people only want to have a conversation when they're triggered by something that you present. It could be the story, if it's short, and it could be how you tell it, because they could be interested in you as a person. It could be your team. It could be something you've done in the past, and it could also be your vision. Yeah. Not only your vision and your motivation. Getting back to that, so all those things have to come across in a pitch, be it 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 7. And it's really about, because those are kind of the standard, well, 5 and 7 minutes are the standard. And there's so much you can leave out, because that's for your first date. So, I mean, so if you go back and you look at, okay, what are, I also kind of like to think in need to knows and nice to knows. Mm-hmm. What do the people who I want to speak to, or in the audience somewhere, what do they need to know about me, about the project, about the production, about where we are, and what's nice for them to know? And those, and that's, I think, the key to how you structure and make choices in your pitch. Yeah. And then when you get at the table, then you continue the conversation about that.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. The other thing I was thinking about, coming back to, I know I'm skipping here a little bit backwards and forwards, but I think this is actually relevant for pitching and networking, for any conversation that you're having. And that's, you already spoke a little bit about it, because I think there's certain fears that people have about, maybe it's public speaking, or maybe entering a conversation, or whatever. And there's a dialogue that's going on in your head, I think, which is, how is that person that I'm standing across perceiving me? Like, the dialogue is about you. And I think what you said before, the key is to just focus on those in front of you and try and get out of your own head.
Yeah, because I think absolutely. I always say this to all. I keep repeating myself. I always say that. Sorry.
Keep saying.
Sorry. I must repeat myself a lot. When you're public speaking, when you're pitching, whatever, it's never about you. It's always about the audience. It's about making sure that your message gets to them. So if you focus on that, and on sharing the message, that's half the battle. That's one thing. And the other thing I wanted to say, which is when you are at a point at a point where you're either networking or you're pitching, you kind of have to step out of the role of being the producer or the director or the screenwriter or whoever you are, and step into the role of being the ambassador of the project. You have to represent the project. So it's not really about you anymore. It's about how can you show your project, can you represent your project in all its facets? Because your project, if you're looking for a co-producer, they're interested in different things than, for example, than a distributor or a sales agent. So you have to be able to kind of show the project for the different angles of it, and so that your audience or your listener can understand it and can relate to it. This has nothing to do with you anymore. It has to do with the audience and your project. And I think that's really liberating, because if you can think about that and concentrate on that, then you're not concentrating on yourself anymore. You're concentrating on, you have something else to focus on. And I think that for a lot of people, most people that I work with or have spoken to have said that, yeah, this helps. This helps.
The ambassador, that's a really good way of putting it, because film is a team sport, I'm going to call it. And there's not just one person behind the project, there's, up to hundreds. And I guess if you're the ambassador for that team. So yeah, it's not about you at all.
Present.
So the other questions we had was something like, if I'm a short filmmaker, I'm a filmmaker and I just make short films, music videos, things like that. And over there is a feature film producer. Should I still go and connect with that person? Or should I just say, no, they do feature films, I'm doing shorts. They're probably not interested in what I have to offer.
Those are two interesting things. There's two dialogues going on. Like, one of them is what I'm hearing is, can I use them in my career, which is the negative aspect of that, which I don't mean, but it's like, so my response to that would be is, if you're interested in that person because of what they do, and because you think that you see an affinity, or you think that you think that there's something to share, if you're not going to work with them, whatever, if you're just going to tell them that you respect their work, or that you like it, and that whatever, I think that's a fantastic way to meet people, because you never know. I mean, people, this industry grows organically. You might be making shorts or features or shorts or music videos or corporate films now, but want to move into other areas. So it's just people. So that's one thing I would say. That's something that I would say it's always interesting to meet somebody else in the field who's a professional. The other side of the coin, what you said is, would they be interested in me? Right. Mm-hmm. And I think, I almost think that question should be scrapped from our consciousness, because if you have something to share because you think that somebody else is, because it's your vision, or it's your idea, or your talent, or your enthusiasm, or your passion, or whatever, it's not a question of if somebody else is interested. If you want to share it, then you share it, and then you see if you're interested in that other person. You might not be. This might be a really, really interesting or a really famous producer, and you might get there and go like, oh, I don't like that person. They're not, they have no interest. They're not a nice person. There's no click.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, yeah, I think that you know, if you could, I would love to abolish this thing of hierarchy. There's always hierarchy in terms of experience, and in terms of well, experience, I think, and but not in terms of on the human level. We're all the same, actually. So, like,
I do. I think also, if, let's say you have somebody with 20 years experience, and then you have somebody that's got 2 years experience. That person with 2 years experience has probably just got 1,000 questions for that person with 20-year experience. And therefore, and I think also the person with the 20 years experience, most likely when the time permits, also wants to share their knowledge. So I think there's always a way to.
And I wouldn't even underestimate the person with 20 years experience might have a lot to learn from the person with 2 years experience, because maybe they know more technically, but I'm assuming the one with 2 years experience is 20 years younger or younger.
That's true.
Younger, or has a different background and can bring totally something different to the table, you know. And there are people I know who are like feature filmmakers, fiction, who start a relationship with an animation maker and then end up doing like hybrid kind of formats and stuff, and that's also really interesting. So my belief is there are no bounds. You know, there's not like, I can't talk to you because you're this, or because you do that, or something, or I'm not interesting to you. It's more a question of, you know, do we connect?
Yeah, lovely. Anything else you want to share with us, with our audience? I guess my a question I have a little bit is why are you in this field of work yourself? Like, what's your motivation?
It's interesting because I worked for many years in corporate, in business, in organizations, in social impact organizations, and all that. And in formalized organizations, you see that there's always like a HR, human resources. There's a company culture. There's a way of conduct. There's all this kind of sort of spoken and unspoken behavioral rules of how we work and how we get along and how we communicate. In our industry, that don't exist anywhere. It's all, I like to call it, it's all rogue. Everybody does things the way they do it. There's lots of creatives who are, and so it's kind of it can be counterproductive or counterintuitive, because people have not really had all these training that, like in corporate, you are trained to communicate to, but in our industry, we're trained in our field and to do what we do the best that we do it. And then what I see so often are where the human factor becomes like the challenge that people are not equipped for all the time. And I see this also in co-productions, and when people are working together, that what I call the human side of working together often gets a little bit fumbled, or doesn't go as smoothly as it can, because of this lack of understanding of how communication works. And I'm being, and maybe it's because my background was an actress. I know I'm fascinated by human behavior and by what drives people and what connects people. And so, I mean, I feel like that's what really motivates me. And I really hope that I can add something to the people I touch, just even if it's just to make people more confident, or newcomers or new people, or whatever you want to call people who are less experienced, to make them more comfortable, and those who are more experienced to make them more open and more humble.
Good point. Yeah.
So it's I mean, there's a lot of work to be done here. So, and I'm so happy to bring something positive to the industry, because I think it's a wonderful place to live.
Yeah. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you, Ronnie, for your time and your wisdom. And I hope everybody else will enjoy our little conversation that we had. And if anyone has any more questions with regards to pitching or would like some coaching, Ronnie is available. I will be putting up the details. But yeah, on that note, I want to say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, and have fun, everybody.
Yeah.